Welcome to Gray Matters with Steve Dotto, Viveka, and Rosen. We have a terrific guest for us lined up today. And Viv, do you want to introduce Jamie for us?
Yeah. So I've known Jamie for a long time. In fact, before I knew Jamie, I read his book. Which one was it? It was, oh my gosh, the first one, How to Make Money.
Money with Social
That was
Media.
it.
Yeah.
He remembers.
Yeah.
How to Make Money. And I was like so impressed with it. Now understand, this was probably 2008-ish.
I think it probably was like 2008, 2010, something like that, a while ago.
It was a minute ago. I was just so impressed with the book, and then we met and we became friends. But if he looks or sounds familiar to you, it is because he has been all over the place. He's a recognized author, obviously. You've got 4 books, and your newest one's coming out, I think.
Yep, coming out in May 2026.
Awesome. We will talk more about that later. You're also professor, consultant, TV news contributor. We would have seen you on talking about Super Bowl ads.
Yep.
You work with Coca-Cola, Mercedes-Benz, Verizon. You talk all over the world. Every time I look at Jamie's Facebook, he's in Paris or Prague or somewhere like that.
Well, I appreciate it. I always get a little embarrassed when the bio goes because it is, of course, all the highlights.
Yeah.
What you're missing out on is the stuff where, and I'm just being authentic and real here. I went out of business many years ago, and that was a struggle. And I've gone through a divorce. I've gone through the death of a spouse. I've gone through a lot of stuff. So I always get a little shy and embarrassed when I get this, sort of here's this amazing guy. Life has had its plenty of ups and downs, and we talk about the ups, but we also have to get through the downs. And I was talking to somebody not too long ago. In fact, in one of the videos I uploaded, I said, success isn't about IQ, success is about resilience. If you can push through the down times, you'll get to the other side and the good times will come back. So I appreciate the intro, but yeah, there have been plenty of ups, plenty of downs, and it's all been good.
I'm becoming super resilient right now, I guess is what we're saying.
Right. All of us have to eventually.
Yeah, indeed. You were just saying that you just attended a high school reunion. And so just out of curiosity, what number was it?
For me, it was 45th. Okay. And it was fun. It was great to catch up. The beauty of those, and people have been to them before, is everybody's baggage is gone. The football team that used to pick on the band members, and I was in the band, that baloney is gone. And so you end up having a lot of authentic, really great conversations with people. So it was a lot of fun.
I have my 50th coming up next year. And I went to Catholic boys' school, Our Lady of the Bleeding Knuckles. So we have all sorts of extra baggage that we're going to have to overcome. Yeah.
The high school for all of us, I actually probably more middle school than high school for most of us was the challenging period. High school can be fun. And then, of course, you jump off to college where if you remember much of college, because there was probably a lot of beer involved, it was great, folks. If you're listening to this, your college years were wonderful.
I've got to ask you, Jamie, the book that Viveka mentioned that you published back now nearly, 15 years ago, How to Make Money. When you look at your career, as you're a boomer or a late or early Gen Xer, do you still, does that still carry the flag for you as far as the message that you like to deliver and what you like to talk about, or has that shifted dramatically?
Yeah.
It's dramatically. And 2 things. Thank you for the Gen X, sort of compliment there. I am a total baby boomer, but I appreciate the compliment. I'll take it. Yeah, it has totally shifted. Here's what happened for me. Is I was talking about marketing, and so my speech is half of my revenue comes from speaking, and I'd be in the rooms talking about marketing, and I realized at an event, say 2,000 people, marketing was always a breakout. Mm-hmm. It was always a breakout section where it was 30 to 50 people in the room. The leadership people got the main stage. And so I said, okay, I want the main stage. 50 people's fine, but I want to get in front of 1,000. And so I shifted over to leadership development, which is basically what I've been doing all my life, which is how to discover a better version of yourself. What are you doing today to make a better version of you tomorrow? And it ranges from everything from mindset to mentoring, to management, to marketing, which is about personal branding. But a lot of the work I do now is actually probably mostly focused on mindset. And the reason I say that is, as you guys know, and all your listeners know and viewers know, If you improve your thoughts, that will improve your actions. And when you improve your actions, that can improve your outcomes. So that get better thoughts leading to better actions, which leads to better outcomes, is basically the foundation that I'm trying to go out to everybody and say, look, it's all up here. And the way you think about the world around you is going to frame things up for you and make it either difficult or not difficult. And if you just change those thoughts, it'll help you a lot. So that's what I'm working on now.
Did you start on it before COVID?
Yes, I did. Yeah. Yeah. I've been doing this probably 5 or 7 years now.
What a great time to be in it.
If I can. Yeah. Well, there's an interesting story behind it. The platform I have is called the Unspoken Rules of Leadership, and it's basically unspokenrules.live. But the way it came about was I was coaching and working with somebody who was a young executive. He came from a humble origins. He didn't have a dad at home. His mom had 3 jobs, all that sort of stuff. And he came to me and he said, Jamie, you're consulting with our company. I really like what you're doing. Can you show me the ropes? And I said, sure. What's going on? He said, I grew up, I don't know the rules of the road. I grew up without a dad. My mom had 3 jobs. I was struggling. I didn't go to a great college. If you can just tell me the rules, then I'll be able to do them. And I said, well, the rules are all written about in textbooks, but there's a bunch of unwritten rules that you don't find in textbooks. And so I'm going to teach you the unwritten rules so that you can use those to propel yourself forward. And that was the origin of everything, because it worked and he did a great job. He's very ambitious and hardworking. And then I said, oh, there's something going on here about these unwritten rules so that you can go ahead and kind of expand and do a better job with your life.
I love that you talk about leadership as an inside job, essentially. It's not how you lead other people until it's how you lead yourself. And I think that's important because a lot of our audience are solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, and they're like, well, I don't really have to do leadership. I'm not a leader. But really, I think everyone's a leader, whether it's a small audience or a huge audience. And so the changing on the inside, I think, is so important. But you were leading us. What are some of those inside rules?
Sure. Yeah. I'll give you a few off of my head. 2 that come to mind. One is there's a book by Dr. Tara Swart out of the United Kingdom. And she says, if you look into somebody's left eye, this is my left eye. So this is my left hand and that's my left eye. So that's what you would look into their left eye. You will bond with them more completely. And the reason for that is evolutionary. The theory is that most people are right-handed. And so when you're being held by one of your parents and being fed a bottle, they're holding you in their left hand because they are right-handed. They take the bottle, put it in your mouth. And then when they look down at you, the first eye they connect with is the left eye, your left eye. Wow. And it creates these neural pathways as a baby that are, I feel warm and cared for and taken care of. So if you do, and I guarantee if you all go out and start doing this, go to the counter at the airport, go to the hotel or whatever and check in and look in the person's left eye and you'll see something where they start connecting with you better. Another one is how to have a conversation. I have a next door neighbor, nice enough guy named Mike. Mike, I hope you're not listening to this. Actually, I have 2 neighbors named Mike, so they're going to be confused. But Mike, I don't know that well. And so whenever we bump into each other, it's sort of this awkward, like, what do we talk about now thing. And I came across in Chris Voss's book, Never Split the Difference, a great book. Yeah. And Chris Voss said, if you struggle having a connecting with somebody and you're struggling with a conversation, when they say something to you, take the last 3 words of what they said and say it back to them with an upward intonation. And so I'm out taking the garbage out. Mike walks up and I'm like, how am I going to talk to Mike now? I don't have anything in common with Mike. And I say, hey, Mike, how you doing? He says, oh, good. I'm going skiing. And I went, you're going skiing? And I did exactly what Chris Voss did. And he's like, yeah, I'm going skiing. In fact, I go skiing 3 times a year. And I went, you go skiing 3 times a year? And he goes, yeah, except this year I get to go 5 times. And I said, you get to go 5 times this year? And it worked like gangbusters. So try that, the left eye thing, the upward intonation thing. And then the final thing, and this is based on mostly science and a little bit of woo-woo, our thoughts create emotions. When you have an emotion, that actually releases neurotransmitters into your body, which are things like endorphins and adrenaline and all those sort of things. Those hormones and neurotransmitters have an electromagnetic charge to them because most things are, everything's made
energy,
out of molecules and everything's energy. And that energy, that electromagnetic energy comes off of your body. And you can see scans of people where they say, oh, here's the energy coming off their body. That's 100% science. My theory, which is a hypothesis, but probably true, that we just haven't been able to measure it yet, is that other people pick up on that energy. And here's why I believe this. We know that birds, to migrate, have to know the electromagnetic fields of the earth in order to migrate. So we know that animals that we share an evolutionary tree with, are susceptible to feeling electromagnetic energy. So the reason I'm saying all this is when you put out positive emotions about somebody, I love this person, I like this person makes me laugh. You're putting out electromagnetic energy that they pick up on as long as they're within like 3 or 4 feet of you. And that's why you connect with people and you say, man, I don't know what it was, but we just bonded. We just connected so well. It's literally because you're exchanging this electromagnetic field that goes on. So that last 10% of what I said is a little bit of speculation, but someday they're going to get a measuring device and they're going to go, wow, oh, Jamie was right about all that stuff. So
how do you,
so anyway, those are 3 things. Yeah, sorry.
but how do you change it? So if someone's being grumpy pants, Alan, how do you then change their mood? Because do I just have to be like, in my head, of course.
Well, in your head, but also 2 thoughts cross my mind. One is that's difficult, but to change somebody else's mood, unless you are somebody who has so much of this energy coming off of you, and historically there have been people like that. Yeah. But the other thing is what I do is less about saying I love you and more about just trying to project positive, non-judgmental energy to them. And then they pick up on that energy and then respond back. If I haven't gone on too long, I can give you a tip on communication skills, but I feel like I've talked too much and I haven't given y'all a chance to be charming and eloquent and all sorts of great stuff. So, but I do have one tip.
You are the guest, so you are definitely not going on too long. But I do have a question about that last thing about dealing with somebody who is, because we all in our relationships and in work now, especially at our age, your backstory, what you're saying, we've all gone through so much. We don't know what people are going through.
That's true too.
Et cetera. So consequently, us being overly glib and overly happy when somebody is dealing with a recent diagnosis or a thing can be a little bit insensitive to a certain extent. But if you're trying to project it onto them. But I wonder about when you were talking about the developing those positive endorphins in creating that sense of purpose, that sense of calmness, that sense of place that you have. If you just have that, people gravitate towards it. So you don't necessarily need to project it, I imagine. But if you live in that space yourself, is that something that people should be seeking as opposed to worrying about what's happening over here with the other person? If you're just worried about what's happening here, not in a egotistical way, but just in a calm, acceptance place. That's the feeling that I've been feeling a lot lately, is just, if I'm okay with what's going on, other people become okay.
100%. And it goes back to what Viveka was saying, work on yourself first, and then that'll project out. We've all had the experience of when we're in great moods, we seem to attract people into our lives who are in great moods. Or who, if we're in a generous mood, the same thing happens to us. And the only thing that we haven't been able to quite prove yet is getting a measuring device that says, oh, look, the energy coming off of Steve right now is very positive. And that's why all these people are walking up to him, being kind to him, because they sense his positive energy. Mm-hmm. Within 100 years, 50 years, maybe they're going to invent that device and they're going to go, oh, we've known
5
this
years.
all along. We just didn't have 5 years, maybe. Yeah, with AI,
with
if we're still around
and the
after AI.
rings and the watches and the measuring devices we all have.
Yeah.
So I derailed you. What was the other tip?
It was about how to have an argument. And I know, Viveka, you weren't talking about an argument. You were talking about, hey, what if somebody's grumpy? But all of us have had arguments with our loved ones. And there's three things that you can do on that front. What happens when we argue is our volume goes up, our tempo increases, and our pitch goes up.
Yeah.
And so when you find yourself in that escalating argument thing, if you want to reverse where you're headed, you start bringing down your volume and you start talking lower. Then you also slow your pace down. And that involves just putting space between the words that you're speaking. And then you lower your pitch, and that helps too. One of the ways you can lower your pitch is by taking your chin and dropping it into your chest, and it'll bring the pitch down a little bit. Now that raises the question, which whenever I'm doing these speeches, they're like, so you're saying when I'm arguing, I'm supposed to look down? And I'm like, I don't know, just look at your feet for a nanosecond and give that a shot. I do, again, have to give credit to Chris Voss on that with Never Split the Difference. He's the one that I learned that from. And it's a great book. I've got great books too, but his is amazing. And so you should check it out if you get the chance. But that's the technique. Lower your volume, slow your tempo down, and lower your pitch. And those three things, they will match your energy, and you'll find them coming down and lowering their volume and lowering their pitch and slowing their tempo down too. It works like a charm.
I wonder if those things that you're talking about, the strategies, when you're in these situations, I've never sat back and thought about a strategy for dealing with getting angry. I've never actually divided my attention that way, or thought about a strategy for feeling happy when I'm seeing somebody, or feeling good when I'm seeing somebody, or where to look at them. It's just, I've always just let nature take its course. As I imagine 95% of our audience we've just been living as opposed to being strategic about it. That must play into it. Just the fact that you can separate and recognize what the situation is that you're in and classify it that way.
Yeah, if you are, think of it this way, to use the data, the hypothesis you have there, which is accurate. If 95% of the population is not doing this, and you are in the workforce and you want to have a better career and a great career so that you can provide for your family and go on vacations when you want, then applying these techniques can help make you a better executive and a better human being at home. So it's not just in the office, but it's at home too. So it takes not as much discipline as you might imagine. It really just takes sort of being aware of them, writing a yellow sticky down for 3 or 4 that you're working on that week, and then just remembering it, and then it'll get embedded in your neural pathways, and you're off to the races.
So your next book should be The 7 Habits of Highly Engaging People?
Actually, the next is called Being a Better You. So when that comes
pretty
out
much
in March of 2020, it's Being a Better You, a guidebook for transformation. So it just teaches you all these techniques in order to help you get the best from yourself.
That's awesome.
Do you find different generations accept the message differently? Because being a boomer myself, I've got this little bird in the back of my head that says, you should know this shit, Steve. You should be more evolved because you're older, therefore wiser. So you shouldn't be having to learn all this stuff.
I do find there's definitely generational ideas that go on. I teach at Emory University, so I'm around 18 to 22-year-olds, actually 25 because I teach MBAs as well. And so I have to, out of necessity, know what's on their mind. And I learn from them because they'll say things to me that I'm like, I think it's a big idea. It might be, maybe you should consider working at a company that gives back to the world, and it doesn't just generate a profit, but it does both. And if you ask my class that, they'd say, who would not work at a company like that? Why would we want to work for a company that's only in it for the profits? And I have to go, oh yeah, right. Yeah, right. We're all trying to work for good companies, But to me, an environment, I'm a boomer, and it's like, the almighty dollar. And you just learn from the younger generation, these very, very good things, which, by the way, I'll throw in a plug for the younger generation, because I know it's popular to say, everybody's a mess these days and kids these days. I got to tell you, they are so smart, so on top of their game. Yeah, sure, they have their fair share of stuff that every generation has, but I am so impressed with the younger generation, not only in terms of their intelligence, but how educated they are, and also how much they have a global, worldly kinder perspective. And so I'm a big fan. Every generation has its flaws, but I think we've got a good generation.
I got to jump in. You are preaching to the choir here as far as that's concerned. Viveka knows I just finished, I do a lot of theater, and I just finished doing a production of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. And I was at 66. The next youngest cast member was 50 who played the Pharaoh, and then they were all 30s or younger. And so the entire cast, so I was completely in a different generation than the entire cast. And it's great to be in a show because your peers, as opposed to being their teacher or their boss or their parent, you don't have those responsibilities. You're just another castmate. So I got to really just be one of them. And I got to tell you, they were so impressive. I just fell in love with that generation. And here's just one little thing that they did. Is when you do a show, before the show, you always go around and say, break a leg. It's like theater tradition. You tell everybody to break a leg and have a good show. Some of them did it, but you know what they do? And this is the first time I've ever experienced it. They went around and they patted each other on the back and myself on the back. They said, got your back. Got your back.
Wow. Great.
It just warms my heart because they understood the importance of teamwork. They understood the importance of supporting each other and being able to take chances. It speaks to so many different areas of performance. But they were they were so emotionally mature in different areas, and they're really immature in other areas, but emotionally mature in so many areas that just impressed the heck out of me.
Yeah. And I next time, if you have Alexa or Google Home and you're reading a newspaper article and it talks about the capital of some country in Africa that you're not familiar with, you just holler out, hey, how many people live in this city? Oh, what's the form of government for that country? Think about an entire generation that has had that opportunity.
Right.
We were all told, go look it up in the encyclopedia. Did we ever do that? Hell no. We never did. I never read that damn encyclopedia. But now you can just holler it out. And then it's an ongoing conversation because it raises another question. Oh, how many people live on the continent of Africa? That kind of stuff. So I think that's a little bit of what's going on with it.
The just-in-time knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, Jamie, what would you say are some good tips, or would you use the same thing as far as boomers and Gen X talking to millennials and younger? Do you have some tips around that? We've got the 3, but what other suggestions would you recommend?
Yeah, the main thing, and it's a pretty simple concept, but it helps a lot, is get inside the mind of the person you're talking to. And that's multi-generational. You don't have to be a boomer talking to a millennial or the other way around. And so what we tend to do is speak from our own experience outward.
Yeah.
Your goal when you want to build a bridge of commonality to somebody and kind of connect with them is to start understanding their mindset, what they're thinking about and what they're all about. There's actually something called a mind matrix. I'm going to try to remember this, mind mapping that talks about the 4 quadrants of the mind. It's not literal quadrants. It's just sort of figuratively speaking. But the 4 quadrants show you how people think. Some people are very analytical, and so you want to lead with data to them. Some people are very imaginative, so they're big picture people, and they're very sort of verbose in the way they see the world and talk about the world. Some people are very systematic, which is different from analytical. Systematic is A plus B equals C, where I'm the opposite. I'm like A plus Q plus M equals Y, which, by the way, I'm preaching to the choir on that. Both Steve and Viveka, I know y'all are that way too, because we're artistic people. Yeah. And then the last quadrant is very empathetic. It's people who think about empathy much more than the average person. And so when you understand most people's brains work in one of those 4 quadrants, then you understand how to speak to them. And you are talking to somebody who is on the data side of the equation, you're going to lead with facts. Yeah. You're talking to somebody who's very imaginative. You're going to lead with painting a picture of what you want to accomplish with them. So a lot of different things on that can help bond you with the people you're around.
How do we look at embracing leadership for those of us that have never been leaders? I'm in my 6th now. I've never thought of myself necessarily as a leader, perhaps. But now you're saying that should be part of that should be part of our toolkit.
Hello, Gray Wave, not a leader. Sorry, I just have to interrupt.
I know that
freaking movement, not a leader.
I know that I've embraced leadership, but I embraced it later in life. And I know what I know what it took for me to do it. I'm just wondering if you are bringing in clients and you're looking to get them to that next level where they embrace the experience that they've got, where they actually take on a mantle of leadership, which we should be doing. How do you get them to that point?
Mm.
How do you get the clients to that point, or how do you get yourself to that point?
Or your friends who you recognize should be doing that. And you know that if they do that, it's going to be healthy for them.
I am, even though I'm in the world, and I'm saying this in sort of a tongue-in-cheek way, I'm in the world of telling other people what to do and how to get to reach their peak performance. On a one-on-one basis, it's more difficult to do and almost not a good thing to do, because you will get accused of interfering with people's business or trying to control other people. So what I've learned the hard way, by the way, because I was effectively an oldest child. There were 6 kids. I was actually in the middle, but there's a big gap between the oldest 3 and the youngest 3. So I was the oldest of the youngest 3. And so I have all the controlling and sort of telling other people what to do instincts. I had to learn my way out of that. And one of the techniques I use is to say, well, I know what I've found is that meditation is a great way to settle your mind, body, spirit, rather than saying, hey, you know what? You should meditate. So I just flip it and talk about myself and my own experiences. And then the people don't feel like they're being talked down to, which brings up meditation. If you guys want to talk about that, I can go deep on that if you'd like.
I was just going to say, I still have such a visceral memory. We were visiting you both in Atlanta, and you were in the middle of the living room floor by the front door, and you were doing your transcendental meditation. I'm like, that's such a visceral memory for me.
It's been a game changer for me. So I'm 63 years old. I have been meditating 50 years, 50, not 15, but 50 years. And I started out doing transcendental meditation. I've changed over to something called heartfulness now. All meditation is good. Heartfulness just focuses on your heart, and you just focus on your heart, and it takes you within, and that's where you connect with the source or God or whatever it is you want to call it. And we all know the benefits of meditation because we've all read the articles. Lower stress, lowers cholesterol, scientifically proven. Lower some people's cholesterol, increases the ability to sleep well, increases mental clarity. I used it in my mid-30s. I was meditating, but not much. And then I went to a doctor to get on Ritalin. I said, I've got ADHD, trying to run a company. I'm bouncing all over the walls. Can you get me on Ritalin? And the doctor was an enlightened person who said, I can, but you'll be on a medicine the rest of your life, which if you want to be, that's fine. But have you ever tried meditation? And I said, well, actually, I do kind of meditate sometimes. He says, I want you to do it twice a day. And I said, okay, I'll give it a shot. And my world changed so dramatically. My brain settled down. I could focus. I could have a conversation with somebody and have another idea pop in my head. And people would have to interrupt themselves and say, oh, here's this other thing I want to tell you about, because we're going to lose that thought. I can now hold that thought out here, finish this conversation, and then go over there. So you can just Google. Meditation is deceptively simple. It's really literally just focusing on any word, counting your breaths. I tell people just count to 10 and then go back and count to 10 again. And what happens is your brain stops doing the monkey chatter. I got to get the groceries. My boss is going to fire me, all those things. And it settles down. And actually, the studies show the brain actually feels like it's settling down. But if you scan the brain during meditation, what's going on is all the parts of the brain are doing a better job communicating with each other. So the brain technically doesn't settle down. It actually increases the activity. But the net effect for the human being is I feel calm, I feel collected, I feel lower stress, I feel more mental clarity, I feel as though I can enter into the world. And when you get to the later stages, the deeper stages of meditation, you start feeling, I feel connected to the universe, and we're all basically part of the universe. So anyway, I love meditation. It's been a game changer for me and my body and my career, my mind and spirit.
You're big on that too, right, Viv?
Yeah, absolutely. It 100% changed. I dropped the practice while I was in my last business, and you can tell I was unhappy, I was unhealthy, all the things. And that was the two things I started doing when I knew I had to make that pivot and make that shift in my own life was, oh yeah, I got to tap back into my intuition. How do I do that? Meditation and journaling. And I do it. I haven't done it yet today because I went swimming, but I'm going to do it later on today. But yeah, the meditation and the journaling I do every single day.
That is amazing. There's a great quote, and I want to come back to journaling, Viv, because that's a thing that I've been getting into. Awesome. There's a great quote about meditation. A guy goes up to a guru, says, "Guru, I need to learn, I need to meditate." And the guru says, "Okay, I want you to meditate twice a day." And the guy goes, "I don't have an hour. I want you to meditate 1 hour a day," is what the guru says. And the guy goes, "I don't have an hour a day to meditate." And the guru says, "Then you need to meditate 2 hours a day."
Exactly.
Because it clears up so much, and you're so much more productive once you get into the groove. That I do 25 minutes in the morning and 10 minutes in the afternoon. Yep. That time is totally made up for.
Oh, yeah.
Viv, tell me about the journaling and how'd you get into that? Because I've started doing it. I'm doing it in my notes app and just putting it in there rather than writing. But walk us through that. I'd be curious.
Yeah, I started doing the artist way, Julia Cameron's artist way, when I was 15. So yeah, 40 years ago.
Wow.
42 years ago.
Yeah.
And so the daily pages, now, to be fair, I only do 2 pages, not 3 pages, but the daily pages were a very big part of what I did. And then why I ended up creating my own journals, I kind of want a journal. I kind of want a planner. I want to be able to take the things that I download in my journal and put them into my planner. And I want to be able to track mind, body, spirit, like, how am I eating? How am I exercising? How am I meditating? How am I journaling? And various other things. And because we have this wonderful thing called KDP, I created it first as just as a PDF. And then I was like, I might as well just put it in Amazon just in case somebody else wants to do it too.
You can't just throw out acronyms. What's KDP?
Oh, Kindle Publishing Direct, I think. KDP.
Oh, okay.
Or Kindle Direct Publishing.
It's
Amazon. Putting it on Amazon. But yeah, so I and this is like the 50th revision, because every time I use it, I go, oh, I should add this to it, or I should change that. And actually, I just used it to create the guidebook for my client guidebook and for my mastermind client guidebook, because why not? There are some days when I'm just like, fuckity fuck. It's just, I can't believe what's going on in the world, blah, 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 blah. It's basically, word vomit. And then there's other days when I get very clear messages. It doesn't even sound like my voice, and I'm able to capture that. A lot of the work I do with my clients comes from those downloads that I get when I'm journaling. And then but like I said, and then I get those and I'm like, oh, but what am I going to do with this? And I loved what you said earlier about when you do meditate enough, you can just trust that you can get that idea again, that it'll come back in. And I loved that. The other part is gratitude. There's a couple different gratitude areas within each day's and each week's action.
Do you look, where was I a year ago at this time? Do you use it that way and read your old journal entries?
Yeah, it's funny. I keep my journals because I think A, one day I'm going to be famous, or B, I'm going to care. And no, if it's something that's important, it gets moved into somewhere else, or I've done it, or I've achieved it, or whatever. In fact, I had a big journal, because I'm not lying. I had hundreds of journals that I carted around with me all across the world. And I finally had a little fire ceremony where I burned all but the first journal I ever wrote, which was very dramatic. As a 15-year-old girl, very dramatic.
But it's funny you mentioned that about burning the journals. There was a story of the first lady in the 1950s. I guess it was Harry Truman's wife, and Truman dies. And so she's going in to the White House fireplace and burning all her journals. And somebody comes up and says, wait, you're burning history. And she said, I know.
Exactly.
Exactly. I know I'm burning history. I don't want people to know about
it
this.
Is in the past.
Wow.
That's great about the journaling and the gratitude journal. So I start every morning with 3 things I'm grateful for, and then 15 affirmations. And affirmations, of course, are I am. Yeah. And then, it's one affirmation written 15 times.
Okay.
And so then, and then
Just kind of
and embeds it in. And that's happened in my life. Before that first book came out, maybe I got to look up. It feels like it was 20 years ago. But anyway, before that first book came out, no, it was about 2008. And I was a mid-level employee at a organization, hadn't written a blog, hadn't written anything. And then I started writing down 15 times a day. I'm an author who travels the globe helping others improve their lives. And so I just started doing that 15 times a day at a time when I wasn't an author. And then all of a sudden I have a friend who says, oh, I know somebody who's in the publishing business. And my antenna go up and I'm like, my brain says I'm an author who writes books, helping others, traveling the globe, helping others improve their lives. My antenna go up and I say, oh, tell me about the publishing person. And that person who told me about her, she and I wrote our first book together with that publisher.
No kidding.
And so it all just happened because of the affirmations.
Yeah. And you can say it's woo, but really, had you not been doing the I am a published author, when she said, oh, I know a publisher, you would have been like, oh, that's nice. Next, what's for dinner?
100%. And that's what I explain to people. I'm like, maybe there's woo-woo, but mostly it's just your antenna are up, and your body, mind, spirit is saying, I'm an author. So when somebody says the word publisher, you're like, subconsciously, you're like, oh, I'm an author. Yeah.
Well, you're reinforcing the desire every day. So you're not forgetting it. It's not becoming a dream in the past. Like I want to be a pro hockey player that I've long given up on. I could write, I want to be a pro hockey player all the time. It's not going to happen.
That's true.
But I know Shannon would like me to write, I'm the kind of cook who cleans up after myself. I know she would like me to do.
I would also like Alan to write that.
We know you can do it. We know you can do it. Just try. Okay.
So you've already mentioned it, but I would love to hear more about your book coming out. Give us a little bit more details. And then, of course, how can people get in touch with you?
Oh, that's great. Thanks. Yeah, the book is Being a Better You, a guidebook to transformation. And basically, it's about how to become the best version of yourself. All of us have an aspiration line. Our aspiration line is basically this version of ourselves that we know exists, but we just need a roadmap to help us get there. And so everybody has a smarter, happier, wealthier, thinner, more satisfied version of themselves that's in their brain. And they just need that kind of roadmap. So this is a roadmap to help you in a step-by-step process achieve that aspiration line, which, by the way, we never fully achieve because we're human beings. And as Bob Dylan once said, an artist is always in the state of becoming. Yeah. And as human beings, we're always in a state of becoming. So we never reach the aspiration line, but part of being human is to try. And that'll be out in March of 2026. And if you want to reach out to me, you can go to unspokenrules.live, which is the website that I have that has a lot of tools, tips, and techniques that you can use in order to accomplish these things. Or just reach out to me via email, jamie@jamieturner.live. And Jamie is spelled Jamie. So it's jamie@jamieturner.live. I'd love to hear from anybody.
We will include all of those links in the show notes. And Jamie, I got to tell you, you've been staring right into my left eye for the entire interview.
You got me.